voted on in the Senate before they get to that point. With me now, Liberal MP Michael Sukkar for more on this. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, David.
So what's your view? Let's just start on the plebiscite itself. You've heard Labor's big concern here. They're worried about the mental health impact on same-sex couples and their kids in particular. Does that worry you at all?
Well, look, we're always worried about political discourse in this country. I mean, it feels like we've been speaking about same-sex marriage for an eternity.
Long time.
I differ from the Labor Party in the sense that I think the debate that we've had over many years on same-sex marriage, I think will be a debate that continues throughout a plebiscite. I don't think it markedly changes. And if we've been able to have a respectful debate, albeit with issues on both sides, over the last few years, I don't see the plebiscite process being any different.
But you would have TV campaigns, you'd have material being pushed out there from both sides.
Well, we've had TV campaigns already from both sides. That's already happened. So I think it's
It'd be another level, though, if we're talking about a national vote.
Sure, it would be more intense as far as the campaign itself, but I think the substance of the campaign will be no different to what we've seen. I mean, we've had 16 bills either introduced or debated in Parliament. So it's been on the agenda for many years. The discussion's been had over that period of time. So I don't buy this argument from the Labor Party. And
have you consulted with anyone about it, like a mental health expert or...?
No, because I believe, as a backbench member, I believe that the Australian people absolutely are capable of having a respectful debate. And we can't, in a sense, walk away from democracy because we're nervous about the fringes of both sides of the argument doing the wrong thing. Otherwise, how would we resolve any contentious issues in this country, either via Parliament, through elections, or through referendums and plebiscites? I mean, we'll have a referendum at some point on Indigenous recognition. Again, is anybody seriously arguing we shouldn't do that because there might, it might bring out the fringe elements, racist fringe elements in our country? No one's seriously arguing that.
No, so the plebiscite, though, you'll concede is likely to be defeated now that Labor's taken this position.
Well, I take a never say die approach.
Right.
Let's wait until it hits the Senate. Labor's obviously said that they won't vote for it. Obviously, it looks like we don't have the numbers on the crossbench, but I don't want to wave the white flag until it hits the floor and we test that.
But what happens then, though, if it is defeated? What is your interpretation of the party's current position around this, and particularly noting what Tony Abbott had to say in 2015 after that party room meeting? He said, "I've come to the view, I believe this is the party room view. This is the last term in which the coalition party room can be bound."
Well, with all respect, what the former Prime Minister said, in a sense, is irrelevant here. We have Malcolm Turnbull's our leader and our Prime Minister. We took a very unequivocal position to the election that in this term of Parliament we would seek to have a plebiscite. And that remains the case. So,
but if that fails, is there a party position?
Well, if the plebiscite fails, like many other pieces of legislation, including the ABCC in the last term, it will be there, ready at very short notice, because the legislation is ready to go.
But is there a party position on what to do in the event of a private member's bill in Parliament?
Well, the party position is very, very clear on a plebiscite. So
no, but I'm asking about on a private member's bill in Parliament.
Well,
is there a position?
No, well, not an extraordinary position. No, it's like any private member's bill, but a private member's bill.
There's no party position on this.
No, absolutely there is. The party position is the only way that same-sex marriage gets introduced in this term of Parliament is following a public vote via a plebiscite.
Okay, but if that doesn't,
so that's the party position.
If there's a private member's bill, which there's bound to be, because as you say, there have been 16 so far, so there'll be more. Is there a party position on what to do?
Yes, so for this term of Parliament, the plebiscite is the only form in which same-sex marriage would be debated.
The only form?
Correct.
So there can be no free vote on a private member's bill?
Not unless the party room decides to change the policy. But as it stands now...
Because some of your colleagues, your moderate colleagues, have a very different view. They believe that the party room position is to allow them a free vote on a private member's bill.
Well, I don't believe that any of my colleagues have said that. The party position here is unequivocal, David. We've got a plebiscite that we're taking to the Senate. If it's knocked back, like many other pieces of legislation that have been knocked back, we don't then abandon the policy. The ABCC was knocked back in the last term of Parliament. We didn't then... You weren't asking, well, have you now abandoned that policy? Because, of course, we didn't.
You just keep on trying to get the plebiscite
Correct. We
through.
will keep on trying, and it will be there, ready for, hopefully, when the Labor Party or the crossbench change their mind and decide that, no, the Australian people can be trusted.
And if they don't, beyond the next election, would you have a free vote?
Well, I think we'll have to have a... If we're unable to have a plebiscite in this term of Parliament, we will have to have a party room discussion like with everything else to determine what our position will be in the lead up to the next election, what we take to the people for the next Parliament.
Does it trouble you? I mean, you've said right now that the only way you'd get gay marriage is through a plebiscite this time.
Well, right now that is our party position, unequivocally.
But the Prime Minister, your Prime Minister, I asked him twice today at that press conference, would you allow a free vote if the plebiscite doesn't get up? And he won't say what you've just said.
Well, I think it's with all respect, I think it's great that he doesn't engage in that. I'm a backbencher. I'm probably entitled to have a bit more freedom in that sense. But as the Prime Minister, I think he, like me, doesn't want to wave the white flag on this, and I don't think he wants to engage in what would be down the track until there's a vote on the floor of the Senate, and I support him in that. I think I wouldn't want him engaging in that sort of hypothetical, notwithstanding the fact that I'm doing it myself. I think until that occurs, he's correct in saying that he's not going to engage in that sort of speculation.
Now, the Attorney General last night released the draft amendments to the Marriage Act. If the plebiscite did get up and was passed, how you would actually legalise same-sex marriage, you change the Act to just say marriages between two people rather than between a man and a woman. And then there's the carve-outs for ministers, religious ministers and civil celebrants to actually refuse to conduct a service if they are conscientious objectors. Also, some religious organisations or businesses would be able to deny service as well. Do they go far enough for you, or would you also like to see commercial businesses, a florist, a baker, able to deny service?
Well, I'm on the record as saying I want the broadest possible exemptions that are available. I haven't had an opportunity to examine the bill in huge levels of detail yet, which is why this has been released as an exposure draft for discussion. And it's also, the Attorney General's made clear that should the plebiscite be passed, that this would go to a joint select committee, where that committee would canvass all of these issues and presumably...
So your feedback then, as part of that, would be that businesses, florists, bakers, so on, should be able to refuse service?
Yeah, as a member of this Parliament, as a backbencher, I would be pushing for the broadest... Not necessarily, I don't want to specifically answer the commercial aspect, but I would be pushing generally... But
for a business.
Speaking
for a business, it's not a church, it's
the broadest
baker.
possible exemptions and for just conscientious objectors to same-sex marriage.
Because the Attorney General, your Attorney General and your government has said that if you did that, that would be further weakening existing sex discrimination rules.
That's an interpretation. I haven't seen those comments. I think there's a way of reconciling those two positions in a way that we respect the existing framework of protections, but also provide protections for this newly, should it pass, the newly created institution of marriage, effectively.
Let me put this to you, though. If a business like a baker or a florist could say no to a same-sex marriage, should they also be able to say, no, I'm not going to provide flowers or a cake if a divorced person is marrying someone else?
No, absolutely not, David, but I'm not...
What's the difference?
To be honest, I'm not actually referring... Well, when I said I want the broadest possible protections, I specifically said I wasn't necessarily referring to the commercial aspects.
So what is your view on those, on the commercial, on the baker or the florist? Should they be able to say no?
Well, I'd have to consider it in more detail. I mean, my instincts are that I'd like the broadest possible protections, but I understand and I do recognise the limitations with existing laws. I mean, really, where I want to see a situation where people who have publicly express a view that they support traditional marriage, I don't want to see them disadvantaged. So I'm not so much looking at the commercial enterprises, but individuals in society who may say, look, my view is that I ascribe to the traditional view of marriage, and as we've seen in many other jurisdictions, those people can be vilified in a post-same-sex marriage environment. I want to see them protected.
We better go. Michael Sugar, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, David.
All right.